Okay, so this is our camera setup for our smart camera, and as you can see, I'm going to point some stuff out over here. This is our EZB, and the light on here is telling us it's connected. The camera is attached to camera port and fed round to the camera, which is actually this device here on the front, the LED to tell you it's lit. We can't put any servos on at the moment because we're running off a little one of these wall wart power supplies until we get some batteries in, and then we're going to be able to power it by batteries, and we can add servos and clever stuff like that. So we've connected to the device, and we're running Arc, which is the latest version of control software from Synthium, and we have basically two settings, 160 by 120 or 320 by 240. You can set a custom setting if you want to do something cleverer than that. You can also feed other cameras into it, so you're not just limited to what's there. So I'm going to click start, and that's going to turn the camera on, and as you can see, it's looking at the legs of the desk and looking at my hand and bits and pieces. You have various settings for the basic device, but before we go into that, I want to quickly jump in and have a look at the configuration for the camera. So what we have is the ability to obviously we can rename it, we can rotate or flip the camera image so that we can do a mirror image kind of thing. Then we have things to do with tracking and movement tracking. If we turn this movement tracking on, one of the things you can do is attach it to a pair of servos. You can attach the camera to a couple of servos and use this servo tracking, which will let you move around just by turning servos. So you've got an x-axis and you've got a y-axis, so you can move left and right and up and down, and you can also change invert the directions. You also have a movement tracking capability, which is more important if you have a robot with motion, be it wheels or whatever. You can actually turn that on, and you can enable it to move backwards, forwards, left, right. So you can do stuff like get it to follow an object, which is kind of clever. We'll look at the ports. We haven't got the port enabled for the camera. We're going to look at the media that we're using. 100% JPEG quality, so it's going to be a small image, but it's relative quality. We've got a video capture using Microsoft Windows Media, and we can pop titles and bits and pieces in the front of it. If we want to record our own video, our own title, you just change this text file here, and you can do that. Instead of video title at the front, it automatically does that. They have detection settings. This is where you can detect your HAR cascades. You can add custom descriptors in there using XML to make it follow different objects, different types of objects. You have a face detection option. You can have a minimum size in pixels, a maximum size in pixels, and a minimum detect count. So if you're really quick and just walk through, it won't see you, but if it sees you for more than 3 frames, it's going to grab you. If you're bigger than 60 pixels, it'll grab you, and if you're smaller than 300 pixels, it'll grab you. These are AR, augmented reality stuff. You can put images behind the image that you've got on there, so in theory you can have the robot running around and have the camera feed appear to come from somewhere else. It will detect what it sees as objects and bring those objects over the top of something else. we can set up scripts for it to run when it finds something, and so when it starts tracking and when it finishes tracking, I mean, you could build a script to go in there to say something like, haha, I found the whatever. It will now follow it, and then at the end you'd have it say, well, sorry, we've lost it, it's gone. These are all your variables from the camera, so you can bring these into your script. Obviously you can make it find custom objects, so if it finds a custom object it will send this out, so you can basically sit and look for these strings and you'll be able to find what it's seen, where it's going. Again, with the glyphs and images, you can put those on, and then you can also make it detect QR codes, so it will then pop up where the QR codes are, or what the QR codes are. We're going to hop out of this. Actually, I'm not sure if I did that right. I wanted to put the default grids on. I really needed to hop back into there. Servo tracking, need my grid lines on. Pop that back. I still haven't got my grid lines, so back to my device. Going to reset those. Now, sharpen image just makes it a little bit sharper, obviously. Tracking is kind of cool. You can make it track faces, so if I were able to squeeze under the table, I'd be able to do something clever with that. I have an album cover that has some faces on. I'm not sure if it's going to be able to. It's not going to be able to detect them because it's not big enough. The images aren't large. Oh, I thought we got a grab there. Then it's not really a big enough image. I don't think there's anything in. Oh, the one inside maybe slightly bigger. I wonder if it can. There we go. You see the blue outline around the face. It can do multiple, so if it sees multiple faces it can capture them. It can also take those clips of faces and send them up to the Microsoft Cognitive Services and then start to look for people, guess their ages, all that type of thing. Looking at motion, and it can see me moving stuff around here as I move that. You see it'll go green and it'll be highlighted, so you see motion appear. Track QR codes, custom hires, glyphs, multicolor. You can track to track a particular color, and if I go into color, it's going to track red. So if I pop this in the way, it's going to see that because it's red. It understands what that is, being red. I could also go in and teach it objects. It's been taught about a CF card, an SD card. I don't know if it's going to see it. Let's go to tracking and we look for a object, and I think the light is wrong for it. It's not actually being able to see that. Not a brilliant demonstration. You can make it track things quite easily. Balls it particularly likes, and bright coloured things where there's a fair amount of reflectivity, and we're getting a lot of late day sun coming in, make it kind of awkward. So that is the camera. There are other functions you can get to use with the camera, and I've just popped up the window for adding in more functionality. We have a whole bunch of stuff here that you can bring in. If we were actually well, later in the week we'll do this, we can do live streaming. So this particular module will allow us to stream live out onto the internet from what we see on there. There's a couple of things like cognitive emotion, cognitive face, and cognitive vision. They all use the Microsoft Cognitive Services, and they're kind of they won't work at the moment until we get the secondary network port in, and at that point we'll be able to go in and do stuff. You have camera overlays, so you can attach the camera. You can do all sorts of clever things with it. It's quite a handy camera, and we'll proceed through the week and do some more exciting things as the days go by. And on that note, we will disconnect, and we will stop.